Welcome to our first episode review of Transformers Prime Retro Reviews. I am Amy,
I am Nick.
and
Hello.
today we are introducing Transformers Prime, the animated cartoon, which we, the two of us, woohoo, will review, a fangirl's perspective. Or,
Yes.
as my husband just pointed out, the Hans and Franz of the Transformers. We're
We're
here
here.
to pump you up. Sorry. Okay, so the show, it broadcasted its first episode a little over 2 years ago, November 2012, right after Thanksgiving Day weekend in the USA on the Hub, Hasbro's very own channel. Season
Awesome
one,
channel if you get it. I love it.
yes, yes, they've got lots of stuff other than just Transformers, so, there you go. Season one is now available from Shout Factory or Amazon, and it looks like this for anyone who's
Yeah.
watching the video. It's got a cardstock slip cover, 4 discs, and it's in widescreen, which is awesome because a lot of them have been in
And you have it
full.
in Blu-ray or DVD.
Yes, you can also get it in Blu-ray or DVD too. The one I've got is DVD because I haven't gotten up with the times yet.
You know what? The reason why I got a Blu-ray player was for Transformers Prime. I
Nice.
actually had Transformers Prime Blu-ray before I had a Blu-ray player.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, because it's so pretty in high def, I tell you. So
Oh
pretty.
yes. Oh yes. I definitely want to have that 70, what is it, 720 DPI or bigger to
Yeah,
watch this.
yeah.
And you're going to want to have the widescreen because they just do a really good job on this. So, um, as the evening of this recording, we await the announcement of when the third season will be announced. Rumor has it
Still
that
wait.
yep, yep. Rumor has it that it may be sometime this spring. So we're all crossing our fingers and hoping that it comes out soon. So, as
Yes.
soon as we know, we'll let you know either online, probably, at least for me, probably via Twitter, which you can follow me at Lady of Rec. And how about you, Nicole?
Oh, I Beatles Diva. Beatles like the band, not the bug. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah. Or you can
Like
also,
the picture behind me.
yes, Beatles Diva. Whoa.
My Beatles.
Or you can also find it on T-Formers or the main Radio Free Cybertron network.
There you go.
So, that being said, we shall review away. Uh,
Sweet.
First episode was called Darkness Rising, and it was split into 5 parts. And today we're only going to review part 1. So we start our series with Cliffjumper and RC. They're driving along, having a conversation a distance away from one another. But it's interrupted by a signal, an energon signal. As he finds out what it is, it's actually an energon growing out of the ground, and it's been claimed by Decepticons. So there's a nice little battle that ensues as a bunch
One
of
against many.
yes, yes, as a bunch of Viacons corner him. So he calls for backup because he realizes he's a little outnumbered. So while he engages the Decepticons, RC calls in the guns. So while they are gathering, because they're in several different places, the cons overwhelm Cliffjumper. Oh noes!
Who's played by Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Exactly.
Yes.
So he sounds fantastic. Um, Although he does a great job holding his own for a time, they eventually do take him in. Well, the energon exploding behind him didn't help.
Yeah,
um,
that's a powerful stuff, that energon, you know?
yes, and you shoot at it enough, it does explode,
Hmm.
which we find often happens in Transformers Prime. So they take him to Starscream, who dispatches him when he asks where the real boss is. What? In the first 5-10 minutes of the show, somebody's killed. What?
I know, that was crazy. I
The
was just,
fan rage. It's
I
my
was
favorite
actually,
character. Ah!
I was so surprised that they actually killed him like that. I mean, because everyone knows that Starscream has these multiple personalities. That he's
Yeah.
the coward, he's the honorary one, he's the leader. But to actually see him take someone's life within the first 5 minutes. That set the tone. It set the bar actually to what the
Yeah.
rest of the series is going to be. You're like, oh, this Starscream means
He
business.
does. And he's got the creepy fingers.
Yeah, those long,
The
spindly
long,
fingers.
spindly, snaky, or not snaky, a spider like,
Yeah.
fingers. Apparently are like scissors because they're very sharp.
Very sharp.
Yeah.
And Steve Bloom, awesome voice acting.
Yes,
Nice.
he does a fantastic job. Yeah. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they establish quite quickly that Transformers in this universe can be killed, and they aren't afraid to use it.
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
so the bots find Cliff's last known location, but when they get there, he's not there, and Ratchet looks for his location on his little thing on his arm, going, "Oh, okay, let's see if we can find him somewhere else." But that's when his signal is extinguished.
I know.
And they're all like, nah! So back at the auto base, as I'd like to call it, is the auto base.
That's cool. That's cool.
They mourn Cliffjumper, and RC takes it the hardest because they were kind of partners, which is a story that was told in the Transformers Prime comic that came out just like a month or two just before the show actually was out. So that was kind of fantastic to be able to see.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that because I really enjoyed the comic. I don't think it got enough credit like it should have.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's starting to get more credit now, and we'll get to that in further reviews and episodes. So lots of good things to talk about. So then we flip gears and introduce Jack Darby. Teenager, works at a burger joint, goes to school, appreciates awesome machinery like this sexy looking motorcycle that happens to be sitting in the parkway.
He's your average teenage boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he didn't see this, motorcycle park itself. He's just admiring the awesomeness that is this motorcycle in, where he works. And of course, this motorcycle is RC. And it's not long until the cons that were looking for her, they find her. And what do you know? Jack was sitting on the seat admiring the ride when she has to jet.
My only problem is, you don't sit on anyone's motorcycle. I don't care.
Yes, it's like, you never touch another man's motorcycle or tools, or you're sitting on somebody else's motorcycle? What?
Yeah, just watch Sons of Anarchy. You learn. Don't touch
That's a very good point. You never touch another person's motorcycle. It will only end in tears.
Exactly.
So he's stuck on the seat. She's driving away. He's like, what's going on? So while she finds a nice place, a nice safe place to drop him off, the cons have made them both. And they also see that there's this human with her. So she ends up having to save his hide a second time because she leaves him behind, and then they go after him. So they're like, yeah, this must be somebody that we need to go after too. So while they are speeding away, RC and Jack, trying to get away from the two cons on the highway, Bumblebee meets up to help out. And they eventually drive off an embankment, and that's where they run into a second human, the second human of our story, Raphael. When the cons show up, they both get a nice little show, transforming fighting robots RC and Bumblebee style. So
I was so jealous of these two. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like Rock'em Sock'em Robot live.
Yep. It was pretty cool. They're like, this is, wow. They're just kind of standing there going, whoa.
I did the same thing. Like, should I run or should I watch?
Yeah, they're robots that transforms into cars, or they're cars that transform into robots.
Who knows?
It's either one or the other, but it could be both. Yeah, there you go. So eventually the human kids flee the scene before they become a part of the crunched part of the fighting. The next day, though, the bots show up after school, and the kids are encouraged to join them because they can be perceived as allies to the cons. And Optimus Prime has requested their presence, so they take them to the Autobot base. Oh, and that's when Miko happens to be the nosy girl that peeks around the corner, so she ends up having to come along too.
Everyone's
Which,
favorite Miko.
yes, which spurs the favorite line. Oh, don't you know humans multiply?
Oh my gosh, there's some great one-liners in here in this
There are
episode.
some fantastic one-liners.
Mhm.
Oh, that's great. So, and they have their introductions to Team Prime. Optimus Prime, Ratchet, RC, Bulkhead, and Bumblebee. We get their title and their reasons for leaving their home planet of Cybertron and how things were devastated, and the difference between Autobots and Decepticons. And Megatron is name dropped, of course, and so they talk a
Mhm.
little bit about him too. Meanwhile, the Autobots might be getting cozy with the human kids, but the Decepticons have found a signal originating from deep space. And when they open the space bridge to the signal, Megatron returns.
Ah, no.
As
Poor Starscream. He's just like,
yeah,
oh, man.
I mean, they were saying earlier in the episode that he was gone and that they weren't sure when he was going to come back. And if he does, it'll be bad news. And yeah, what do you know?
Mhm.
The end of the episode is Megatron returning.
Exactly. Yep. And Frank Welker hit it on the nose again once. I remember watching this episode when it first premiered, and it's just like that was my biggest worry because they didn't hire Frank Welker for the movies because they were saying he couldn't do the voice and everything. So I was worried
Yeah.
when he came on Prime that he had just that one line, and he was just like, ah, he nailed it. I loved it.
He did. I mean, because you're right. You're right. I mean, if I think back, that was everybody's concern because we'd heard how um, Peter Cullen was doing Optimus Prime, and so we're like, oh, okay, well, we expect that. No one expected Megatron to come back and sound so much more like awesome than he did back in G1.
Mhm.
I think that everybody was like,
Exactly.
"Oh, if he sounds just like that." Some people were saying, "Oh, it'll be fine." But, they were hoping for something a little bit more, and he brought it, man. He totally brought it.
Oh,
If I
oh
remember
my
right,
gosh.
he was like our favorite at, we reviewed the whole year over
Mhm.
on Moonbase 2. That was the voice actor that
The
we were
moment.
most impressed with because we had something to compare to. And so to hear how much he's evolved the voice just with age is like, man, it's like fine wine with him. He just got
Oh,
better.
awesome. It was beautiful. It's like
Yes. Yeah.
hit it again, hit it again. It
Yep.
was
Frank
awesome.
for the win.
Mm,
So
yeah,
before we
for sure.
before we wrap up, let's talk some of the other elements of the series. So
Okay.
how about the animation art? What did you think about that?
Okay. I love most of it. I liked how the robots looked. I liked the designs of the kids. I remember a lot of people are complaining about the background. It's like there's nothing in the background. It's just so plain. I'm like, well, if you've ever been to Nevada, they've nailed it. They've nailed the background of Nevada
Yeah.
pretty well. So I could see what they needed some more people in the town, maybe some few cars on the roads. But as of the scenery of Jasper, Nevada, it's spot on. Like I said, if you've ever been to Nevada, you know they've got it. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed the animation. I thought it was great. Besides, a little bit more human characters in the background. So what do
Yeah.
you think?
I was just going to mirror the same thing. I was just going to say, driving through lower part of Utah and into Arizona. Yeah, could have driven out in the middle of nowhere and say, "Hey, this looks just like Jasper, Nevada." In
It
fact, I
it
took
does. It does.
pictures. Actually, what I really liked is the distance and the depth of the environment.
Mhm.
Because like the desert does look like that. There's not a lot there, but then at the same time, from a distance, it looks so painterly. And the other
Mhm.
thing I wanted to kind of point out that I really, really liked about this is that if you've seen it in HD, you like the metal on the Transformers looks like
Oh, so
metal.
beautiful.
Like the highlights, the way that they glow,
Mhm.
like you can see the textures on the face, like it glows like or it has the highlights like metal does, but then you can see like the grooves and the little
Yeah,
scratches
little
and all
scratch.
of the little, it's just like, whoa, it looks like real metal.
One of
Um,
the things I noticed was like when Starscream's outside in the daylight, they actually have the reflections of the clouds on them.
yeah,
So
there's that
yeah,
too.
it's really cool.
It's a really, really nice touch. That's
uh,
the only reason why I have to say that for the humans that are they're squishy, they don't reflect anything. They kind of stand out a little bit because they're so plain. At least
yeah.
for me, it's kind of been like that. And the only other thing that I had that I kind of didn't like was how the hair doesn't move like real hair. That's the only
Oh
thing I was like,
yeah.
But that I'm niggling. I mean, for the most part, I'm really happy just seeing how much detail that they've put into the Transformers. So,
Well, the one thing that they were talking about was well, this goes with the next episode when Fowler is introduced, that
mhm.
his tie wasn't moving like for the first few
Yeah,
episodes. I think they might have retouched it up for the DVD and the Blu-ray because I noticed it today. I'm like, his tie is moving, so I'm wondering if they, touch some things up for the
hmm,
releases.
that's a
So,
good point. Yeah, that'll be
so.
interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. How about the designs and the introduction of the characters? What did you think about them?
Okay, when the first came out, just like everything, everyone was complaining, "Oh, they're too skinny or they're too sharp," and I'm just like, the thing is, I was just like, I kind of like with the RC look. I'm like, finally, a female robot that's not pink.
Yeah, and she can
She's
bring it.
yes. I'm like, I like this RC. I really like this RC. But yeah, I once you see the designs in movement, it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Especially Starscream. There's something about his whole character mold that's just spot on. You're just like, that's definitely the Starscream for this series for sure. They nailed him.
Yeah.
So
One thing that impressed me just watching over it again today was that every single one of the characters just seemed to have a like a fighting style and a movement that was all suited toward them. And so I really liked how they introduced like, Cliff Jumper, even though we only had him for for an
hmm
episode or two, as we find out more about him next episode. Um, it's just they did such a good job kind of pulling me in and making me care about the characters. And RC's got this like, because she takes Cliff's death like really hard, and so she's just kind of like, mopey, and
hmm
she's not like overly mopey, like, oh, she's like crying, and like, no, she goes more internal, and she blocks everybody else out. She's just got this really hard exterior, and so
she's definitely what I picture a female warrior tech like.
yeah. If
You gotta
anything,
stay strong in front of the guys.
yeah.
You can't let them see you cry.
If anything, I have to say the other characters, I mean, in the past, like it's, Optimus Prime and Megatron that stand out. For me, it has not been those guys that have stood out, at least not Optimus Prime. He didn't really stand out until later, but the characters that really did stand out to me were RC and Bulkhead. And from here on in, we get a little bit more character development of those two guys. So, not so much
Especially
with
those.
Bumblebee because he doesn't talk. Although he
He
does
had his
hold his
one.
own, but what was
I
that?
see. He had his one episode, Bumblebee, but
Yeah.
Ratchet to me was one. It's just like, oh wow, this Ratchet's really interesting. I like him. So.
There's that too. There's that too. So, how about the story? What really stuck out to you for this first episode?
This first episode was loaded with everything. You've got the detail why they're here, who they're fighting, why the enemy is here. They have a good story involvement of why the kids are involved. Um, this first episode really amazed me. Unfortunately, they set the bar so high, with this first episode. You compare all the other episodes to it, and sometimes the other episodes kind of lag from it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had some funny bits, you had some emotional sadness, with Cliff Jumper. You got into the story and you wanted to be there when the robots were fighting, and you're just like, this is really good, awesome first episode. Way to start the season off
Cool.
or new series, sure.
Cool. I pretty much felt the same. It was pretty straightforward. It gave. I liked the events leading to Cliff's death. They just sucked you in for the first episode. You're like, oh, no, he died. But they also
We got
established.
donkeys.
Huh? Well, yeah,
Zombies.
that's the next episode. Yeah. They established the threats, the risks, and the dangers, and then we just built from that episode. So, yeah. From here on in, it just kind of builds up, and then you're like you said, there are other things that come into play, and you know, again, they did set the bar pretty high with this one, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but
No.
there were some episodes that kind of were a little weaker than others because of such a high bar. So, and we'll of course get to those and discuss them. So, yeah, awesome.
Sure.
Well, that pretty much covers this episode of Darkness Rising Part 1. And that is our review. So I also wanted to put out there just because other fans out around in the internet have reviewed this, and one of them happens to be some friends that we know that have done Transformer Prime full reviews on a podcast called Moonbase 2, which they called Master Prime Theater. So you can check that out at moonbase2.libsyn.com. And we'll see you next week.
Aloha.
Ciao.